Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I have a very special guest, my daddy, Pat Lane. I'm going to be talking to him a little bit about his experiences with autism. And as you know, if you follow my content for a while, I do have a cousin that has profound autism. I talk about her often, and just going to be interviewing my dad, asking him some questions about Haley when she was young and just his experiences. Dad, Haley's older than me by how many years? 6 years?
Well, she's 45 now.
Right. Well, when she was little and younger, I don't really remember much about that. When I remember Haley, she was in high school and getting to this age where she was going to be out of school. And I remember the school bus coming to pick her up, and she like went half days to school. But I didn't have that experience of her when she was really young. So I'm just really curious to know about her development when she was little, and like for the family, how did you guys back in the early 80s realize that something was going on?
Oh, it was a shock to us all because we did not know what it was.
Right.
Uh, None of us had even heard of autism 45 years
Mm-hmm.
ago. And at first, first thing I noticed, like I said, Susan had a hard time trying to breastfeed that child. She just wouldn't suckle. And mother finally intervened and said, and baby's starving to death, give her a bottle.
Mm-hmm.
And it did. And so kind of went on. Uh, I don't, because I was young back then, I was single, I was crazy, and I was wild. But when I was there, it wasn't until a little bit later on, maybe a year and a half, that I became convinced there was something really bad wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a sad story, and I can still see it vividly. But I was at my mama's house, and I was watching Haley, and she walked then, but she was a little bit late in developing, you know.
With her
And
walking.
yeah, with her walking and just anything. Of course, she's nonverbal. She never said anything. And I constantly talked to her, trying to get her to respond, make a noise, do something. She just wouldn't have it. But I saw her reaching behind the refrigerator, and you got to understand, this 45 something years ago. Back then, those refrigerant lines were exposed.
Mm-hmm.
And when I saw her hand back there, it scared me to death. I hollered at her because I was afraid she was going to burn her hand on that tubing. And I hollered at her, and she just paid me no attention. And I was getting to her just as fast as I could. I had to go around the kitchen table there and everything. And I was just right on top of her. I said, "Haley, get your hand out from there." And I just clapped my hands. I don't know why. I was just trying to get her danged attention.
Mm-hmm.
She didn't flinch.
Mm-hmm.
And Bella, I reached back there and I got a hold of that hand that was furthest back there and pulled her out, and I picked her up. And of course, she's kind of in her world. And I was loving on her, and she didn't cry. She didn't do anything like that. But I knew right then and there was something wrong with that child.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember distinctly walking out in the backyard where Mama was working in her garden. And Mama looked up, and I had the baby in my hand, had Haley with me. She said, "What's wrong?" I said, "Mama, this child's either deaf or there's something else wrong with her, but she's got a problem." And Mama just broke down.
Mm.
She started crying. She knew it too. None of us was afraid we were afraid to say anything.
Yeah.
And but that's when Mother and we knew then that there's something was just not right with that little baby.
Mm-hmm.
As she grew and stuff, and she'd have problems and have fits and stuff, about the best treatment they had was her father, Bob, would put her in a car and take off driving out in the country. And little by little, she'd calm down.
Mm-hmm.
I know he spent a lot of time in that car with that child, especially in the evenings.
Right.
I guess when the boys got home and everything was more chaos and stuff, and that's kind of when she get fritzy. That's what we use the word Fritzy. We don't know what it was.
Mhm.
But it wasn't until my sister read an article in the National Geographic magazine and she took it to her doctor and said, I think this is what my daughter has. Because you got to understand, back then, what was it, 1 in 10,000 births?
Yeah.
I didn't know anybody that had an autistic child, you
Mhm.
know? We were just one of the first ones, you know?
Yeah. So what about like in the family after Susan went to the doctor and the doctor said, "Yeah, I think this is what your daughter has." Do you know, like, was there any conversation about it within the family? Or I know there wasn't really a lot of support, especially living in a really rural area.
Right,
There really isn't anything except the public school system.
right. And they
But
didn't have
and they didn't
anything
have anything
and didn't know
either.
anything about it, you know?
Right. Was it ever a conversation in the family that you talked about it, or was it kind of just like always hush hush?
You know, mother and Susan would have been one that talked more about it. Again, you know, I was a young man, I was wild.
Mhm.
It's just when I was there, I'd try to stay involved, and but we just didn't know what to do. Had no idea what to do. And then when she get, you know, fidgety and go to striking herself or something like that, it had to break your heart.
Yeah.
You wanted to, what do I do? Wrap her up, or something. Don't let her do that. But we just didn't know.
Right.
And I've seen things happen with that child when she was so young. When Wayne, I don't know where Wayne got that deer from, but he brought that dang little yearling deer out there to their house. They had some acreage right outside of town there, and her and that deer just bonded almost immediately. It was the dangest thing. Haley could go out in that backyard. She could pull that deer's whiskers, stick her finger in her nose, and the deer would just put up with it. Any of us walked out, hell, you'd act like a deer. He jumped away. But it was
Mhm.
like that deer knew that she was different,
Yeah.
just sensed it. That always fascinated me.
Yeah, that's amazing.
How that particular animal and her just kind of clicked.
Yeah. Yeah, that's something else. I remember a lot of when they lived on the farm as a
Hmm.
kid, and being like 7, 8 years old, and she would get into these fits, I guess,
Oh yeah.
where she would get so aggressive with herself. And I remember me and the other girls, the cousins, we'd be sitting around playing, doing whatever, and she would come up to us and just pull our hair
Uh-huh.
so hard. And I remember this one time she was just beating herself up. And Susan got her outside and was trying to calm her down. And I remember asking mom, like, why can't we just, like, what's wrong with her? And she was like, well, she doesn't feel good. That's what mom told me.
Hmm.
And I was like, well, why can't we just give her Tylenol? And mom was like, well, that doesn't work for her. And I just, like, my small brain could not understand,
Yeah.
like, why she was doing that to herself and why she was pulling our hair and everything that was going on. And
Well, guess what? We didn't know either.
mhm,
It's the first person we'd ever seen with this kind of a malady.
right. I mean, even thinking back, like, as a young girl in school, I remember being around kids that were in wheelchairs or even that had Down syndrome, but I didn't really have the exposure of autism. Haley was my only real exposure. In
Hmm.
school I didn't really have that. And to me, it has obviously changed my life and impacted my life to be able to do that. But I think when I think about those experiences of watching her become so aggressive with herself, and Susan trying everything just to calm her down, I mean, to me, that's what breaks my heart. Is like, man, this mother, this family that lives in a rural town, and they there's no services, there's no support, there's nothing. And it's so easy for people, I think, on the internet to be like, well, try this, or what about this, and it's just, they don't get it.
Well, there wasn't no internet either back then,
Yeah,
so
yeah, exactly.
there was just no place to get help.
Right.
You couldn't even go to the larger cities like Corpus and find a medical doctor that knew something about it. But people didn't know anything about
Yeah.
it. It was just that that few cases,
Mhm.
and to see where it's gone and where it is today, uh, it just frightens the hell out of me.
Yeah, it really is. It really.
But look what it did to you.
Mhm.
I Both you girls. I got two girls, both got graduate degrees, and both of them work with kids with special needs.
Mhm.
And you don't think that makes me and your mother proud? No,
Yeah.
we're proud as hell of
I think
you.
it's those lived experiences.
Well, yeah.
It's the lived experience, seeing it, wondering, how to be able to support and help and going after that passion. I mean, but like, what do you think? Like you've been following me for a while. I mean, since I started the school early on when I was at the church,
Oh,
you've always been involved in what I do. That was like around the time I think that you retired. And
mhm.
you've always supported me and been around it. I mean, but what are you like, what are your experiences, or what do you think about just what you have seen, the
Well,
work that I've
I
done?
have seen that you have a gift that other people doesn't have. I will never forget that time. And you had a little boy in there, and he had melted down, Baba, in the middle of the hallway, and he was just throwing a hissy fit. Every one of your teachers were out there trying to do something, with him, and he wasn't having it. And that was a long hallway. And about that time, you come around that other end like you normally are. You're too tall and you wear high heels. You look like you're about 7 foot. Slinky little thing walking down that hallway, and this kid's on the floor just going bananas. And you just squatted down with him. I don't know what you said, but about that time, that boy just put his arms up. You picked him right straight up and hugged him, and he was quiet as a mouse. And I knew right then that you could reach him somehow or another.
Hmm.
And yeah, I enjoyed the time I spent at the school. Believe me, it is painful for me, but it's part of mental mature. You've got to learn to deal with things.
Hmm.
And I had my opportunities at that school. Oh, you had so many kids in there and at different degrees, and
Yeah.
and it was just the ones that you could talk to. You could talk to. When you moved from there and went to Oasis, of course, my favorite story is Maddie.
Hmm.
And here's a girl. What was she? 7, 6, 7,
Yeah, probably.
nonverbal. You know, wouldn't talk, nothing. But when I'd go in there every day, I'd always say hello to the kids and make sure I knew their name. And I'd say their name and where they'd see me. And I got to where they recognized me, and they knew I was a safe person.
Hmm.
And I had my little office in there, and they'd sneak in there, and I just let them come,
Yeah.
and
They would.
Micah, he wants to get my desk, and I just would whatever you want to do, Micah, just try to interface with him. But that morning I came in there and I was going to go to my office, and Maddie was right there, and I said, "Good morning, Maddie," and she said, "Hi, Pat. Wow, your eyes got that big. My God, Daddy, she spoke. You've connected with this kid. Well, that ripped my heart out of my chest. I'm telling you. I never came in there a day I didn't hunt Maddie down and say hello to her.
Yeah.
And she'd usually, hi, Pat, right back at me. It just felt
Yeah.
like I took a giant step forward.
Yeah. I
That
think
was,
it's so cool to remember that story, because I do remember that day, and we had a lot of hard times with her.
oh, yeah.
She was challenging, and connecting with her was challenging, and she was doing things like fecal smearing and
Oh,
all
yeah.
kinds of stuff like that. And that was around the time when I started learning about floor time, and I started using that approach with her, and
Mm-hmm.
it really helped her a lot. And it's funny because, I still work with her brother and sister,
Mm-hmm.
and I saw her a couple of weeks ago, and I went out to her, she was in the car, and I went outside and hugged her, and I said, "Hey, Maddie, how you doing?" She said, "Oh, I'm doing good, Ashley." And I said, "Maddie, are you being a good girl?" And she looked at her mom, and she looked back at me, and she goes, "Yeah, I'm being a good girl." Her mom was like shaking her head, like, but now she's a teenager,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
and so it's so funny. But I love to see, her progress, and I just think that story is such a testament to relationships.
Oh,
And people on my social media now, they see Anson and Dorian in my videos,
yeah.
but
Mm-hmm.
back then it was you.
Yeah.
You were there. Dorian was still working. Anson
Sure.
was in public school.
Yeah.
So it was you there every day going into your office and
Mm-hmm.
talking to all the kids, and I think some people might think that's strange that I incorporate my family into my work, but it's all about relationships and connecting with kids. And what's the most natural thing is like you were like the grandpa,
Yeah.
you know?
Well, and you taught me that those kids are inside there.
Right.
They're really there,
Mhm.
and I'm convinced that they know a lot more than we think they do,
Mhm.
and they can comprehend and they understand the situation. They just they can't communicate,
Right.
you know,
Right.
and that's what's heartbreaking,
Yeah.
And
That's what makes me think about I think that about Haley all the time, like to be 45 years old, she's never left her house really.
mm-mm,
I mean, I don't even know the last time she did leave her house. It's been probably months.
not except for the walks every
She goes
morning.
for walks every morning, but she doesn't watch TV. She doesn't have the autonomy to like choose what she wants to eat
Mm-mm.
or what clothes she wears. And all these experiences that she's gone through in her life, what are her stories? I always wonder, like, man, I would just love to know like what her stories
Yeah,
are.
what's going on in her head,
Right.
but we'll never know that, you
Yeah.
know. And Susan has worked her butt off her whole life, trying to take care of her and do the right thing for her, and just didn't have any direction or
Right.
any help or any way to progress further, So it was the basic needs, You got to bathe her, you got to feed her,
Yeah, keeping her alive.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
keeping her alive, and then I mean, today she's a grown woman, but in a lot of ways, she's still a child in the family,
Yeah, of
you know,
course. Yeah.
and that's. But I make it a point. I always when I get to mom's to see my mama, and yeah, I'm gonna go say hello to Haley first,
Mhm.
and when I leave, I go out there and I say goodbye to her because she's in the swing out there by herself,
Mhm. Mhm.
And I'll sometimes I get a little bit forward. I say I'm not leaving till I get a grin or something out
Yeah.
of you, you know. And and she might roll her eye,
Yeah.
Okay, well you can keep wishing, but you're not getting it,
Yeah. Yeah, that's
But then
funny.
sometimes,
She will.
sometimes she will,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so I adopted that, learned from you that those kids are there, they're inside there.
Mhm.
Just treat them like people,
Right.
you know. Just treat them like people. Include them, when you're in conversation. Make sure you speak to them too,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
keep them from isolating themselves because
Right.
that's exactly what they will do if they're not getting any attention. They're going to
Mhm.
isolate themselves,
Mhm.
and I think that just makes it worse.
Right. I think the average person who maybe is not impacted by autism, they don't realize that these kids or adults are intelligible and that they have the capacity to understand what you're saying to them.
Mm-hmm.
And so they just kind of like talk about them, in front of them like they're not there, or maybe talk to them like they're a baby or something like
Mm-hmm.
that. And I think that is so detrimental to not only like their own well-being, but just for you. Like it makes that adult, that person look just like they don't understand. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's so important to really teach people that you can connect with them and you can have a relationship with them and you can have
Mhm.
fun times with them even without words.
Oh yeah, yeah. You just they're they're humans just like us,
Mhm.
and and that's the saddest part of this is imagine what they'd have to share
Yeah.
if they could, and
Mhm.
but people like you, other people in this business now, I've followed you ever since you started this floor time and stuff, and I see the benefits of it.
Mhm.
Of course, I don't, I'm not here as much anymore as I used to be, uh, but yeah, there's just a host of experiences that I can remember being in those two schools with those kids, and you got to have your guard up.
You sure do.
Uh,
Remember that time that all your pens went missing in your
oh
office?
my gosh. I got I signed my books, and all my pens are gone. And then what was it? There's Micah, and that cover was off, and he was sticking them in there behind the wall.
Yeah.
That whole collection's behind that wall there, and it wasn't worth knocking the wall out. I just went and got me some more pens, you know. Oh yeah. Well, and Maddie that
And
time
Maddie too,
she got
yeah.
the little Christmas logos I was putting on my
Oh
envelopes when I
yeah.
was mad. She had them things stuck everywhere and stuff. I just find whatever, you just kind of if they're enjoying themselves
Yeah.
and it's not causing a disaster, let them be.
Right, right. We used
You
to have
know,
some good times
yeah,
over
we
there.
had some good times with them.
Yeah, that
They
was
come in
really
and sit on
fun.
her and the other. What was the little girl's name? She was not autistic. She was older, but she had her mental development wasn't there yet. What was that girl's name? It was always with Maddie, and they'd come in there.
Oh yeah, Aubrey.
Aubrey. They'd come in
Yeah.
there and sit down on the couch, and it was
They were best friends.
yeah, they were best of friends, and and if they got up and got into something, I just let them get it. They're having fun and laughing, and of course, Aubrey was the only one that was really doing any talking and everything.
Yeah. She would talk
But
your ear
but
off.
but Maddie she'd laugh and she was smiling and I knew
Mhm.
she was enjoying herself.
Yeah.
So man, I just rolled with it, just let them
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good feeling to help. It's just not my nature because I'm the kind of guy that I want to fix something.
Yeah.
Damn it, I want to know. How to fix them.
Mhm.
Yeah. But that's one of those things I've had to learn to live with. I can't.
Mhm.
It's tough.
Yeah, you just have to enjoy them for who they are.
Yeah. But it's what you do now with the parents, including with the children, I think is by far the most important thing to do.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
can only do so much for the child in a therapeutic way.
Mhm.
If they don't continue what you're doing at home, well, you're just spinning your wheels.
Right.
And now that you're getting the parents involved, with the training,
Mhm.
with the kids, look at the difference it makes.
Yeah.
Huge difference.
Yeah.
Because they spend most of their life with them.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, if you can equip a parent, then you really are equipping the child and you're supporting the child because the parent.
and I know we've had this conversation a lot about, parents a lot of times are the problem.
Mhm.
Well, go to my sister Susan 45 years ago. Who did she have to turn to?
Right.
Who could she go ask a question to? You know, she had nothing.
It's a lack of resources for
Total lack.
parents.
You know,
Yeah, it's horrible.
and of course now with the incident rate as high as it is, there's more and more people getting involved. And thank y'all that that keep this close to yourself because it's important and there's a big need out there. They
Mhm.
till they get we're going to get a handle on this. We've got to get a handle on this. But my opinions, and I don't like to talk about politics or religion and things like that, especially open air kind of things.
Mhm.
But it's it's something we've done. It's something we have done, and we've got to get this figured out and get it stopped.
Yeah.
Because it's not just taking that one human being and isolating it for the rest of life. What's it doing to the entire family? And it's destroyed families.
Yeah. And the crazy thing is I'm getting more and more siblings. More and more siblings are coming to me were families who have multiple children with
Yeah.
autism. And I think about Haley and like what Susan has to do in her old age to
Mm.
care for Haley.
Oh yeah.
And then you think about a family who has 3 kids or
Yeah.
4 kids with autism.
Wow.
What's going to be of them in their old age,
Mm-hmm.
and again, it's my lived experience, watching Susan literally complaining about her back hurting and her being in so much pain, and Haley is getting aggressive with her, or she's
Mm-hmm.
having to do all these things for Haley. Like I literally see it with my own eyes, and I
Mm-hmm.
think that is why I'm like, man, I agree with you. Something we have to figure it out.
We got to
We
figure
have
this
to
out.
figure it out. I know there's a lot of controversy in the autism world, and but to me, there's two different spectrums. People like Haley are not the people that are on the internet talking about their disability.
Oh no.
They're completely different.
Oh yeah.
Haley will never be able to tell us her
Mm-mm.
experiences, her emotions. Never.
Yeah.
It's two different. To me, it's two different
Well,
disabilities.
it is. They what they call it, the spectrum and everything. But those people like Haley, yeah, you're never going to get through to them any more than what you can do in an instance like this with your therapy and stuff
Right,
like that,
right, right, right.
and help the parents, to continue that
Right.
on.
I think Haley could. I know that Haley could do things, and I know that Haley could make progress. But it's within her environment.
Yeah.
If Aunt Susan is not doing these things, then it's not going to carry over.
Mm.
But Haley lives a good life.
Yeah.
She lives a very good life.
Hmm.
In regards to being well taken care of, and she's happy most of the time when it comes to doing the things that she wants to do, and she's well cared for.
Hmm.
So it's not to say that her life is bad, but oh man, I just would love to be able to see her regulate herself better.
I would love to see you, you know, her come to you as a 2-year-old and see
That's what
what you could
I
have
think
done.
about her when I work with these little kids. Like right now, I've got a little girl that's about to turn 2. I think about Haley all the
Really.
time when I'm with her because I'm like, man, if I can just help this girl, like
Hmm.
her trajectory would not be the same as Haley's.
Right.
And I think that Haley could have made a lot of progress, but back then they could only accommodate her for 3 hours a day in school, and
Hmm.
they didn't know what to do with her.
Didn't know what to do with her.
They didn't
No.
know how to help her.
Mm-mm.
It was mostly just like daycare,
Yeah.
and that's the schooling that she had, and they didn't have access to therapists.
Oh
They
no.
didn't have any of those things back then. Susan never got any kind of government assistance back then, and even if she did, who's going to go out to the middle
Yeah.
of nowhere, Texas?
Yeah.
Nobody.
Yeah. You're right.
So
They're just she was stuck in a tough place to be. You know.
right, but I mean, I will live my life where her story is told. I feel like if I can tell her story, then it can impact people and empower people to say, okay, we have to make a change. We have to do something different, for these families. And Haley's just one story of all the other thousands and thousands of people that have lived like her and not had to access to things like her.
Hmm.
It's detrimental to these families and really sad, really
And I
sad.
mean, we've come a long ways. I mean, used to they just kept those kind of kids out of sight.
Right,
They didn't talk about them. They kept them in another house or in a far bad back room, and they kept them isolated. They didn't know what to do with them. You
right,
know,
right,
but they were their children. They were gonna make sure they were fed and
right.
bathed and everything else. But there was nothing you could do to help them improve. You know,
Yeah,
because
right.
nobody knew.
Yeah, we've come a long way with
Yeah,
all of that.
what little bit I know about it, being around it like you and your work, what for the last 6, 7 years, I guess.
Hmm.
Uh, I've learned an awful lot. You know, I can spot things now a lot because I've been around it enough.
Hmm.
And sometimes, I want to get aggravated at their parents and stuff,
Mhm.
because it starts there.
Mhm.
The parents have got to be involved, and and they need to work with somebody that knows, and then make sure that they're doing that stuff at home, and that's the only way I know to help them improve.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, it's
but
true.
it's Haley. I mean, hey, she's a grown woman. Good grief, it won't be long. She'll be going through menopause. You know,
Yeah.
and
I think about that often. What's going to happen then?
well, yeah,
Yeah.
you know, things like that bound to affect them.
Yeah.
Just because they're autistic doesn't mean that those other changes.
Biologically, yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't have an adverse effect on them or some kind of effect on
Right. Right. Yeah. I mean, she's, yeah, going through all the stages of physical development like everybody else.
them.
Yeah. It's,
Yeah, that's a tough thing.
mhm. It really
But
is.
now that like I said, there's people like you that are out there and reaching out to other folks and starting this dialogue, uh, getting people to really think about it. Um, maybe we'll develop some more mechanisms, something else. Like the floor time as opposed to that other thing. It's like you're trying to train a monkey to do the same thing
Right.
over and over again. That's not it. They're
Right.
not monkeys.
Right.
They're human beings,
Mhm.
and you got to get past that.
Yeah.
I don't even know what it's called, but
Yeah. You're
I don't.
talking about applied behavior analysis.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That I don't see any good in that at all.
Mhm.
Because at the end of the day, guess what? They're individuals.
Right.
They're all individuals. They got their own private little thoughts going on. We just can't get to them.
Mhm. That's right. I know. Well, thanks for coming on my channel, Daddy, and talking to me about it.
Well, like I said, I was glad to do it. I said, your mother and I are very proud of you, of what you've chosen to do. Uh, world needs more people like this, and she lives and breathes it, guys. I'm telling you, she wakes up thinking about autistic kids and goes to sleep thinking about them. And it's going to take more people like yourself
Mhm.
uh, to learn more and grow and apply what you've learned and help those that you can help, and hopefully help those parents too.
Right. Yeah.
That's what I would think.
I think you're right.